I thought I would come in here today and talk about a few basic principles in dog training because I hosted a seminar this weekend with a good friend of mine. You guys probably know who he is. His name is Nino Drawart of STS Canine. He's that guy putting out that content out there that's just that really flashy stuff, right? Where we see his Malinois and his lab. They can really move, they're really dynamic, they're really fast and flashy, and it's really beautiful to watch. And it's something that people aspire to, right? It's inspiration to see someone who can move that gracefully with a dog. And a lot of people want to achieve that, right? And it's not an easy thing to achieve. And so I think that what ends up happening is a lot of people go out and they see something that's inspiring on the internet, whether it's him or anybody else, right? And we think, how do we get these results with our dogs? How do we start? What's step one, right? Like we don't even understand what's step one. And so oftentimes what we do when we aren't sure, when we don't have a path, is we create our own, right? And there's a little nuance to that, because while you should be creating your own path for sure, there is a right way and a wrong way to train dogs. Point blank, period. There is, right? There is a right way to do things and there is a wrong way to do things when we're talking about, conscious creatures, right? And we want to be, cognizant of how they're being treated, and we want to have scientific based evidence as far as how dogs learn, right? Like classical conditioning, those types of things. Now, I am a trainer who does believe in the use of tools. I am a balanced trainer. So you will see me use things like a prong collar. You will see me use things like an e-collar, right? And these are things that we think of when we think of the word tools, right? You think of the word tools in dog training and you think of these two things, right? That's what everybody thinks of, is these two things, okay? But these two things should not be coming into your play in dog training for a long time, right? Especially if you don't know what you're doing. If you're brand new to dog training and you want to start working with a dog, these two things should not be in your toolbox just yet, right? You'll get there, but leave these things out of the equation. Because oftentimes these are the only two things that we think of when we think of tools. But you know what else is out there that's a tool? This, a leash. A leash is a tool. You know what else is a tool? A clicker. A clicker is a tool. And what I have seen a lot lately, not just with people at a seminar or maybe even my mentorship group. I have a mentorship group that I teach privately, and I receive videos and feedback and that kind of thing, and I do private mentoring as well, one-on-ones, and I get videos sent to me, right? And these folks are trying to demonstrate simple movements and can't. And there's nothing wrong with that, because everybody's on their own stage, right? There was a point where I couldn't either. So, but they can't. And we're already asking them to do things like put your dog on a leash, right? Get a clicker in your hand, get food in your hand. All these things to someone who can't lure their dog into the heel position. What are we doing asking for people to use tools? So I'm kind of reassessing how I'm going to approach beginners from here on out, because the thing about using a marker is that classical conditioning is scientifically true. We know that classical conditioning increases, accelerates learning by 50%. Did you guys know that? That's how powerful this tool right here is, using a marker. It doesn't have to be a marker. It could be a word like yes, whatever your markers are, right? They accelerate learning by 50%. So in some cases, it's foolish not to use one. But if you don't know what you're doing, there's nothing to mark, right? There's nothing to mark. You can't get your dog into the proper heel position. What are you marking, right? So we need to step way, way back and focus on movement when it comes to beginners. So if you're new to dog training, step one is to take the leash off your dog. Get this out of your hand. We're going to teach you how to move with your dog so that you have something to even mark, right? Then we'll talk about starting to layer on different tools like a marker and a leash. Cute, thank you. So I'm going to pull my dog out here. Her name is Trauma, and I am going to demonstrate some very, very simple luring, because learning how to move with your dog is step one. If you can't move, there's nothing to mark. So you need not worry about markers. You need not worry about a leash. Let's just focus on movement. So I'm gonna bring her out. I'm gonna show you some basic stuff that you guys can work on at home, okay? And none of this, all this goes out the window. Don't worry about any of it. In fact, I don't even want you to talk to your dog during any of this, right? Just zip it, be quiet. This is all about you and moving with your dog. So I've got some food here, okay? And I'm gonna work with food because food brings focus. We're not ready for speed. We're just gonna be asking for focus and movement. So one of the very first things that you can do with your dog when you're working with food is teach your dog that your hands are targets, right? That means I want you to have food in both hands. So when you're brand new to dog training and you're just trying to figure out how to move with your dog, I want you to have food in both hands because your hands are your steering wheels to manipulate your dog into movement. This is how we begin, right? So all I want you to do, now this is a more advanced dog, so these demonstrations are gonna look a lot easier for me, right, than it might be for you, so keep that in mind, okay? But all you want to do is bring the food, right, to your dog's nose, get your dog's attention, right? Maybe hold them back a little bit, ask them to hunt, right? And pay. That's it, right? Just bringing this here to your dog's nose, getting your dog to follow the lure. See how we can just get her to move, right? She understands this, okay? That's it. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not asking for sit. I'm not asking for down. I'm not luring into a heel position. Don't worry about it. This is for beginners, all right? You just need to get comfortable teaching your dog that your hands have food, right? So this is it. I don't care if you just go in a fucking circle. I don't care what you do. All you're doing is teaching your dog, okay, that this is where you get paid. This is where your food is, right? Just teaching your dog to follow your hand, okay? That's step one. That's step one for brand new trainers. Do this with your dog or your young puppy for a week, right? For a whole week. Do nothing else but teach your dog every meal time, right? No bowls on the floor. Your dog is working for their meals, breakfast and dinner and lunch if you're feeding a young puppy. Our opportunity takes 5 minutes of your time. 5 minutes, that's 15 minutes a day total, right? 5 minutes at a time, you're working with this dog, teaching them to follow your hand and then just open your hand and pay. That's it, that's simple. For a whole week, that's your assignment. Once you get comfortable with that, okay? Once your dog understands that you have food in your hands and that if they follow your hands, they get paid with food, you're gonna start to be able to do a little bit more. So now you can start to maybe ask for some behaviors. Lure the dog into a sit position and pay a sit position, right? Look how simple that is. Here's a dog that understands, he follows my hand. So I raise my hand up and I get my dog to sit in the sit position, right? So then maybe if I do a sit, oh, maybe I can do a down, right? And pay my dog in a down. But see how simple it is to once you've established that this is payment, these are targets, and this is payment, and this is your steering wheel for moving with your dog. You lay that foundation for the first week with your dog or your puppy, then you can start asking for behaviors, right? But instead, we see all these people doing all this shit. Oh, we gotta have a clicker, I gotta have a leash, I gotta have... No. You gotta learn how to move with your dog first, right? All of this stuff comes later. These are all overlays to your training later, right? You can't even move with the dog, so you don't even need to hold a marker because there's nothing to mark, because you don't even yet understand the mechanics of movement with your dog, right? So you can back way off and just enjoy your dog, enjoy your puppy, enjoy the luring, enjoy laying this foundation, because the foundation of movement will literally carry you through for the lifetime of your dog. Learning to move with your dog is literally what builds the foundation. Like, I can't stress it enough. It's super important that you understand it. So now I'll demonstrate some beginning movements, right, into a heel position, okay? So a heel position is going to look like this. Okay, do we see that? So I have food in my hand because I've established that my dog will follow my hands, right? We've established that, which means now I can bring her back and lure her into a nice heel position, okay? But here is what I mean by your mechanics and learning to move with your dog, because what it could look like if you don't know what you're doing, right, is something like this. You're taking a big step back, right, and we're luring our dog. Now look how crooked she is, right? Now I just put a reel like this out. Look how crooked she is. That is wrong, right? And this is a dog that we know can move and be precise in the right position, but because of your bad mechanics, you might end up with like a dog that looks like this. And even watching this video, you might not have seen the difference between the movement I just did that created the crooked position here and the movement that I did that created the straight position that you saw in the repetition before, right? Because you have to develop your own analytics as a trainer. You have to get really good at understanding how your body language really does cue your dog and manipulate your dog into positions. When things are not right, when things are not straight, when things are not symmetrical and parallel or adding up, it's not your dog, it's you. It's you not having the right mechanics yet. You haven't quite discovered where you need to tweak your movement to pull your dog into that nice and straight position. So I recommend to lots of new trainers, not even new trainers, I still do this myself. I know top competitors that still do this. Videotape your session, watch it back. There's a reason that athletes are watching tape all the time, right? They're watching their games back. They're watching their performances back. This is just as important for you as a trainer, developing the skill of movement with your dog. So videotape every session. Trauma. Okay. So again, that heel position for me, right? Here she is nice and straight. Ah. Okay. Nice and straight. But if I have bad mechanics, right, I could just as easily make her crooked. Now she's kind of wrapped behind me, right? Then we go into fixing mode where you might start taking a step forward to fix it, right? Now we're trying to, oh man, well, that's not quite right. Let me look here. Oh, how do I get her just straight, right? You don't want to do all that. Don't do all of that. Get it right from the beginning. You're going to reward the correct position from the beginning, okay? Because you don't want to create, you really will create a dog who comes in crooked every time and waits for you to fix it, because that's the pattern you're creating, right? So not a whole lot of reward by approximation when it comes to this kind of stuff. There's a place for rewarding by approximation in training for sure. This isn't it. Not when we're coming to this type of performance training. I don't do that, right? I will abandon the position completely and start over before I try to like fix it. I'm not gonna fix it. If she comes in crooked, I walk away. Reset, right? Try again. If she comes in crooked because I fucked up, reset, okay? Come back in, try again. Don't reward what isn't right. You're just reinforcing it with every repetition that you get wrong, okay? So just let it go. Now, you might be like, well, I can't get a good repetition in. I have nothing to reward. We look like shit. That's okay. That's okay, right? So, no, you may not join. That's okay. So instead, back up, right? Work on that movement and pay the dog in that way. And continue to take video of yourself and practice without the dog. I know that sounds so silly, but think about it this way. Why would you put in bad repetitions with the dog when you can practice without the dog and get it right and watch your video and see, I have this right. My position is good. I understand the fluidity of this movement. Now I want to bring my dog in and practice and see if I've got this down. That's how you do these types of things, right? That's how we start to understand movement. So practice without the dog, right? Pretend your dog is in front of you, right? We're taking a step back, we're changing, we're coming into that position. Practice this movement with your hand, right? Coming back. This hand has to change. See that? When we come back, the hand has to change to bring the dog back. So you have to, it's awkward. It feels awkward. But if you want those really nice, symmetrical, perfect movements like we see, it is a little uncomfortable, right? Because we have to bring the dog in. We're bringing the dog in like this, okay? So bringing the dog in, stepping back with our leg to provide more of that visual cue for our dog, right? So we're coming back, we're switching the wrist. This is when the dog makes that turn, right? So we're lowering back and switching the wrist so the dog makes the turn, comes back in and up here. Pay top down. Do not pay out here. A lot of people make that mistake. Pay top down. This will get the dog to pop into that sit, right? We don't want a dog to come forward and just sit. No, we want a dog to come forward and pop up into a nice, straight, fast, dynamic sit, right? That's what we all want, right? Why have mediocre when the difference is this or this? Why, right? Well, let's just do this or do this. It takes minimal extra effort to get a beautiful result, right? So why not? I feel like anything worth doing is worth doing the best to your ability, right? Done. She found a bone to keep herself busy while I was running my mouth. Huh, yes she did. So, coming back here, making the switch, popping into the sit, right? Good. Yeah, good girl. So coming back, changing, popping into the sit. Paying top down, right? Now, eventually, you'll be able to fade all of that heavy, we call it heavy luring, heavy, you know, all that body movement, right? Because like all of this, right? Oh, she's following me. Now I have to follow through. All of this body movement is a lot, right? Like that's a lot. You have to fade that. And fading is okay. Don't be afraid of it. Fading means you're doing less. So it's, you know, you're taking less off of your plate, right? So you'll begin to fade that movement because eventually, through a lot of that repetition of the dog coming back, changing, right, and then coming in and sitting, he's learning how to move his ass. He's learning how to move his back in so that eventually you won't have to do all of that body movement. You'll be able to just do that, right? So let's see the wrist. Okay, eventually it'll just be a wrist movement. Still paying top down, top down. I'm not paying out here, I'm paying here, okay? So we go from all of this heavy, heavy body movement and luring like it's a brand new 8-week-old puppy, right? To now all of a sudden, I just need flick my wrist. That's it, right? That's progression number 2. How do you get to progression number 3, right? Which is no food in the hand that you're luring and just, oh, did I get crumbs in your eyes? No hand in the food that you're luring. What do you got on your face? What is that? What is that? Just a scratch? All right, what was I saying? Oh, so progression, right? So going from just the flick of the wrist, right, to being able to then have no food in your hand, right, and you want to start doing a verbal, so you can just tell your dog, heel, heel, right? No food, no luring, hiss, okay? And be able to get to that point, right? even that is part of fading. So even that is going to, the progression of that is the wrist movement again, right? And then coming in and out with the food, right? Movement is subtle. Yes. I come in and I help her when she needs it. It's watching. It's seconds, it's milliseconds of tweaking and watching and developing analytics as a handler to see, right, where was her head position and where do I want to reward? Where am I going to mark that? Is it here? Is it here? Now, if I have food above her head, she's going to go like this, right? And when I start fading and bringing my hand behind my dog's head, she might want to go like this, right? Or she might want to start backing up. Now, if she does start to back up and that's not what I want, what am I going to do if I don't have any tools yet? I'm going to stop her with my foot, right? I'm just going to reach back behind with my foot and I'm going to stop her so she can't go back, right? I put my foot here as a guide. She can't go anywhere. Look at this, right? If she's here and I'm here, she can't go anywhere if I stop her with my foot, right? Nope, you can't go there, okay? Providing like a little puzzle piece where she has to fit into that movement, right? And then being able, heel, heel, being able to come in, see, now she wants to go back, yes, okay, and provide a little bit of feedback to her so she knows and understands, and I'm gonna mark when I feel like the position is something I'm happy with. Now, if we were in that position and it was just not right, it was crooked or it didn't feel right or it was just off, what would I do? Abandon the position, come in, reset, try again, right? That's what we would do. But what I'm not doing, this is so gross, this food all over my hands. What I'm not gonna do is worry about, is she on a leash? Do I need to put her prong collar on so I can show her how to go and where to be? Should I put on an e-collar so that I can stem her to go in the right direction and tweak this? Do I have my marker, right, so that I can mark and click? Y'all can't even move with your fucking dogs. What are we doing? What are we doing? There's a time and place for this stuff. I'm a balanced trainer. I believe in tools. There's a time and place for this stuff. But this isn't it. You got to get good at moving with your dog first. Make this your number one priority. I don't care if you have an 8-week-old puppy or a 4-year-old dog who knows nothing, right? And you just want to start training. Good for you. Start. Treat that 4-year-old dog like an 8-week-old puppy. Full luring, food to the face, right? Just right here. Start to teach your dog how to move and follow a lure because these are your steering wheels. These are your targets. Your dog has to understand, right? We have to get the dog to be able to move. We have to. And I know some of you might be thinking, okay, well, that sounds great, but my dog doesn't work for food. My dog has no food motivation, so what do? What's my approach? All dogs are food motivated. Hear me. Hear me. All dogs are food motivated. Here's a reason your dog might not be food motivated. Does your dog eat from a bowl? If your dog has free access to food anytime they want it, or even if your dog is on a schedule where they might get 2 or 3 meals a day, food has no value. Food is not a valuable resource. You've taken all of the value out of the resource of the food because they've come to expect that they can either walk to that bowl and eat whenever they want, or they know that mom's gonna put it down before she goes to work, and she's gonna put it down maybe after dinner when she's swapping laundry. I can count on the fact, right? Dogs are smart. This has no value if you put it in a bowl. When it gets value is when it's in your hand. When the only time that this dog has an opportunity to eat is from you, imagine the relationship, right? Imagine what a valuable resource your dog sees you as, right? You become a valuable resource. You are the conduit through which your dog accesses the ability to live, the ability to survive, right? You provide food, you provide affection, you provide water, you provide play, you provide all of the things that your dog needs, right? Then that relationship, that's why you see so many Malinois that are just like some of the most bonded dogs you'll ever see. And people say, oh, you know, Malinois are just people dogs. Now, part of that is true, right? But I like to think of most dogs to be that way to some degree because they're domesticated, you know? So part of that is true, but a lot of that is also because Malinois are working dogs, and people who are serious about training are typically the kind of people who end up with a Malinois. And so we know things like this, right? But this is not just applicable to Malinois. This is applicable to the doodle puppy who's in my house right now, right? Working for his meals. This is applicable to your pug, to your golden retriever, to your lab, to your Chinese crested, right? This is to your greyhound, whatever you have, to your mutt from the shelter, right? All dogs are food motivated. It might take a minute to reset the idea that your dog has in his mind that he can access food whenever he wants, right? It might take a few days to tweak that. It might even take a few, I guess I would say fasting, right? We're gonna take the food away. So the dog no breakfast, right? We're gonna skip a meal, a little bit of food deprivation, so that when dinner comes around and you wanna start to introduce the idea of working for food, he's very much more likely to engage in what you're trying to show him because he's hungry. Hunger is a motivator. And dog training, you know, like is definitely manipulating that hunger. It's drive. We call it drive, food drive, right? We're manipulating that drive. You can call it hunger to get our dogs to move and to manipulate our dogs, right? They have to understand that they have to do something in order to receive, right? You have to give to receive. Hey, what do you have? You bring that here. No, ma'am. Done. She thinks she's slick. You think you're slick, you're not. No, you're not. All right, so I hope a lot of that makes sense, right? So my main reason for coming on here today was, you know, markers are great, right? Markers are fantastic. I want you to get a marker eventually. You should eventually be using markers, whether it's a clicker or the word yes or spoon or whatever word you need it to be, right? Eventually you should be working with markers because markers accelerate learning by 50%. But if you don't know how to move with your dog first, you have nothing to mark. And all this is gonna do is confuse you. You have too much going on, right? There's too much to worry about for a new trainer or a new handler who's got food in one hand, a clicker in the other, right? Maybe you're holding the leash and you've got food and you're like, fuck, like I don't even know. You're managing all of these things now and you're setting yourself up to fail, right? So lots of times we talk about setting the dogs up to fail. Sometimes we set our own selves up to fail. It's the handler who also needs to avoid setting themselves up to fail. If this is too much for you mentally to figure out how to deal with this right now, don't worry about it. This will come later, okay? The leash, set the leash down. Take the leash off your dog. Work in your living room, work in your garage, work in your fenced backyard where you can, you know, have the freedom to move around with your dog without the leash, because the leash is a communicative tool. This is an overlay, right? We'll bring the overlay of the leash in at some period, but not in the beginning when we're just learning how to move with our dogs and get them into positions and that kind of thing. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. I am going to go ahead and pop off here because she's kind of being left to her own devices and she's finding things that she should not find in the garage. So, all right, guys, I'm going to take off. Listen, if you're interested in learning more, I do private mentorship on my website, right? And a new class starts every month. So if you're interested, maligatormom.com, go check it out, sign up. We have a great time. It's literally only $2.99 a month. And you have access to me for the whole month. And you also have access to a whole bunch of guest speakers. And like we do all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of fun. So maligatormom.com, right? Go check it out. and read up on the syllabus. If it's something you think that you could benefit from, I highly encourage you to sign up so that we can get started on your dog training journey. I would love to help you. This is my passion. It's a lot of fun. I love working with new handlers because I feel like there's a lot of trainers out there, especially trainers who are working with these types of dogs that are just elitist assholes. Like truly, they're judgy, they're elitist, I don't like the community, so I'm trying to change it, right? I want you to feel welcome. You have one of these dogs, I don't give a fuck how. I don't care how you got it, why you got it. I don't really care. You do, right? So now let's put in the work and let me help you do that. So go check out maligatormom.com if you're interested. I would love to meet you. I would love to work with you. I got to take off because she's being a little shithead. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.